Hello and welcome to the Sports Trifecta's Kentucky Derby Prep Race podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Sean O'Brien. You can see all my tweets underneath the name SOB. I'm going to be guiding you through the Kentucky Derby prep season here, recapping some races, and going over our top fives. A little bit about us here. The Sports Trifecta, we're three friends that grew up with each other. Two of us are very passionate about horse racing. The third, not so much. But we thought it'd be fun last year to get together, start, putting not exactly our money where our mouth is, because we bet on horse racing in the past, but put our pride on the line. So we run contests throughout the whole racing season, from the Kentucky Derby all the way through the Breeders' Cup. And loser has to do something embarrassing. It's very entertaining. If you want to check us out, go to the Sports Try at the Sports Try on Twitter. You can follow us there. We're based out of New York City and New Jersey. And what we're going to be doing for you here is recapping all the big races leading up to the Kentucky Derby and the Oaks, because you can't forget about the fillies out there. And I'm going to kind of go over also a couple betting tips along the way and hopefully get you some money in your pockets come the first Friday and Saturday night. Based on that too. So basically, I'm going to go over just a little bit of the major races, the ones that stood out to me so far in the prep season for both the Derby and the Oaks. It all started back with the Iroquois, which was an okay race. It was run by the Tabulator. Stalked. It wasn't that fast for a race. I'm not going to be dabbling on the Iroquois that much or some of these other races. I'm just going to talk about the ones that really stood out. The Front Runner Stakes. It was a mile and 16th. It was ran in 143. It was won by Boltoro. It was a beautiful stalking trip by him. He exploded down the stretch and just buried the field. That horse was in control the whole time. This was why Boltoro was the favorite in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. This is why everyone's talking about Boltoro. If you're looking at other podcasts, if you're going to the other horse racing websites out there, talking to handicappers, this was the race that made Boltoro. Also in this race was Solomini. Solomini is another one of the top horses. We'll be talking about him in a little bit too. When I looked at this race, he was worked a little bit wide, and it looked like the jockey at the time was a little indecisive on what path to take to finish and lost a little momentum and really helped Boltoro blow the whole field out. Another race that comes up to mind here, we did have the Champagne, which was run by Firenze Fire. That was a 1 miler over here in New York. With that one, Firenze Fire won. He was in the way back, stretched out field really helped him. He didn't have to maneuver around that much traffic to come from the back. It was a very stretched out field. Good Magic was in this race. Good Magic won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. And this was the first sign that I saw of Good Magic when it came to stalking. He was doing a very good job at stalking and just got caught by an absolute flyer down the stretch. Firenze Fire tore down the stretch there. This may be the last time I mention Firenze Fire for this podcast because I don't like horses that come from the back. So as much as that horse came flying down the stretch and put up a really good time in that, I don't care, because we're going to talk about the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, where Good Magic, the horse that he beat, came off with the win. It was a mile and 16th. Firenze Fire was in that race, got caught in traffic, then never fired. All right. So apparently he needs room to get momentum going. If so many things go right, Firenze Fire is an amazing horse in smaller fields. Watch out for this horse. Very scary. Not in the Derby, though. I'm not going to count him. Good Magic had a great trip here. A couple things that stand out in this race, too, was Solomini. He stalked a really hot pace, and he still finished strong second. If that horse learns what his optimal speed is, which we did see in his next race, he's very dangerous as well. I'm just not 100% sure if Solomini's top speed gets him there. Boltoro, this was the one that puts a little bit of question in my mind. He was on the outside post. He didn't stalk. Is this horse a little dependent on positions? I don't know. However, Boltoro I mean, he still had a late burst. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't like a terrible race or anything. It's just you're expecting the world from this horse, and he didn't deliver on the biggest stage there. Some horses I threw out that race in this, the Tabulator, Hollywood Star, Friends I Fire. I'm done talking about them. They're just not a great sign there. The other ones that stood out to me here, the Remsen Stakes. This was run by Catholic Boy. There's another New York race here. He really romped the field at the end. Avery Island was in this, and he was soundly beat. This race wasn't run, I think, at a very fast time. However, Catholic Boy put up pretty good speed figures in the process. I may touch on that in a later podcast with speed figures and actual times and, track biases, things like that. But for this one, Catholic Boy came on the map. That was the first one, I believe, on dirt for him, and started, that may start a really good run for him in the wintertime here. Although it's got to warm up here in New York. It's in the teens still. We're in a pretty deep freeze, and they've canceled a couple stakes races already at Aqueduct. So we're going to have to see how that goes in the future here. The last two here, the Cash Call Futurity was run. Solomini won it. Then he got DQ'd. McKinsey ended up winning it after the disqualification. This whole race, it was a really fast race, which is great. And Solomini did cross the line first. And I didn't really think it was that big of a deal of what happened down the stretch because it was three horses going back and forth, and Still Regard was the third horse in this. All three horses finished very, very strong. Solomini, he ran his own race and he didn't get mixed up in a hot pace. It turned out to be a really strong finish if he didn't get DQ'd. I'm still counting him the winner in this one. He didn't pay technically because he's DQ'd, but to me, I mean, Solomini was the most impressive one out of this. McKinsey, this is where first time I've heard the name McKinsey in a race, and that horse didn't disappoint either. Hung with Solomini right there as well. And then last but not least, I'm just going to touch really briefly on the Springboard Mile. Gravitas, how do you pronounce it? I don't know yet. I've been following this horse a little bit, and I was really excited in seeing this horse go into this race and just won comfortably again. This horse has been very, very impressive racing down in Louisiana. And the Springboard just dominated a field. I want to see him go against better fields. So I'm going to touch base now on my top five for... now, I'm actually just going to go over the Oaks Preps races right now. The ones that have stood out when it comes to the fillies. So with these, there's been a couple good ones here. Let me just check here. So the Chandelier was ran as a mile and 16th race. They ran it in 146 and 32. Moonshine Memories had a great stalking trip. I would say perfect. Pulled away at the end, was able to handle faster split times and just track down the leader to take the win. Alluring Star was that leader who got caught. She set really fast fractions and just ran out of gas at about a mile. It's interesting to see if Alluring Star could possibly slowed down the pace a little bit. I don't know. She may be a sprinter miler instead. I'm not 100% sure on that. We did see her and Moonshine Memories also race in the 14 Hands Winery British Cup Juvenile. But before that, there was the Frizette. This one was a huge race in my mind. It had Separation of Powers and Caledonia Road. Caledonia Road went on to win the Fillies Juvenile. Separation of Powers won this. She was a very nice stalking trip after a pretty hot pace. Turned on at the right moment, and the rest of the field just faded away. She won pretty easily. Caledonia Road was in this. She had to come from way behind. It was dealing with a whole bunch of log jammers in the front. Log jammers were just everywhere. She had to take a really wide trip to get in position and just didn't have enough track to catch up. She finished second pretty easily. It was only a mile, had a distance. This one really stood out to me because I was like, oh, if Caledonia Road gets a better trip, she's going to, beat out at least Separation of Powers. And this was by far the fastest race going into the Juvenile. Then they did the juvenile filly race, and Caledonia Road won. She had a huge sweeping close, went 5 wide, still won. Had a great finish. As long as she's not bottled up in traffic, this horse seems really, really good. However, she runs the risk of being caught in traffic, so it's a little tough. Alluring Star had a great trip in that one. Just she wasn't the best. If there's more traffic in the way, she might win though. So Alluring Star is still on my list there. Blonde Bomber came from way back. Separation Powers, tank looked empty. Maybe she needed a little bit of a rest, maybe 2 out of a pace, but she got beat. And there's a horse, Piedi Bianchi, I was following early on, but I'm throwing that horse out. She's probably going to be an also ran come Oaks time if she makes it that far. After that, we had the Goldenrod. So the Goldenrod really stood out to me as maybe the most important race so far for the fillies. It had a fantastic time. They ran a mile and 16th and 143 and 36. It was a neck and neck, photo finish between Road to Victory and Monomoy Girl. Road to Victory stalked a very hot pace and really dug in late to get the victory. It was a 2-horse race as the field was non-existent, so it was her and Monomoy Girl. Monomoy Girl led the whole way, had her race with really fast fractions and all, just got caught late. Nothing to be ashamed of, just got caught. These 2 horses right here, with that kind of time and running that kind of race where they're in the front of the pack, they don't rely on being closers. This one really stood out to me. I may be referencing this down the road too, and those 2 horses. Then after that, we had the Demoiselle, and I'm going to just completely toss that one out. Wonder Godot. It was such a slow race. I don't even want to mention any other horses in this. I'll mention Wonder Godot. She was also in the juvenile fillies. Didn't finish great there. And then she won this super slow race. I'm not sold on that one. And then we had the Starlet is the last race prior to recording this, in which Dream Tree won. It was mile and 16th run 143.87. And she may have to have a target to get up with, but I mean, I have to watch other races. But Dream Tree romped. Curious if she can keep up Chris paces or not. I'm not 100% sure. Yesterday's news was in this, had to lead a little bit. Not sure if she really wanted it. Didn't work out in the end. Dream Tree came out of this. I was pretty impressed with Dream Tree. It was a good race to watch there. So I'm going to go over my personal top 5s. I also got a top 5 from D-Lo for the Kentucky Derby. He's another one on member of the Sports Trifecta there. He's the other horse racing fanatic. He just couldn't make this podcast for this month. He may be on some later ones though. I'm actually going to mention his top 5 here for the boys. So in order, I'm going to start from his 5th. He's got kind of split between McKinsey and Gravitas. Anybody want to help me with it? I think they say Gravitas on the race replays. I think I got a nice siren in the background here, if anybody hearing that. But he's got them split. Then he's got Avery Island, who's been racing in New York. Avery Island won, I believe it was, or he was second in the Remsen behind Catholic Boy. But apparently he's more impressed with Avery Island than Catholic Boy. He's got Avery Island number 4. He's got Solomini at number 3. We talked a little about him earlier. Good Magic at number 2, and he's got Baltoro number 1. So I've got a pretty similar top 5 here myself. If I start from the bottom, I kind of have, I've got Catholic Boy and Gravitos kind of tied there. Catholic Boy, I'm not 100% sure. I've only seen him once. I think he was racing turf before that dirt race. I don't really know. I'm not a huge turf guy. I'm not in Europe, so I'm not a huge turf guy. I understand it's raced differently. Horses grip it, tighter turns, things like that. But he showed really well in that Remsen there, put up a pretty high speed figure. Gravitos, he's the one that if he gets a moderate, or slow to moderate pace in the Kentucky Derby, I think this horse is fantastic. It looks fantastic. What I'm concerned about him, it's he hasn't faced any competition yet. So I mean, he can dictate his own race, but I mean, it's over other horses that aren't that fast. Is the distance possible for him too? I'm not 100% sure on stamina. Uh, he hasn't had to close down to the wire, so I don't know if he faces a duel down the stretch, is this horse going to be able to overcome it? My eyes are on him. Right now, I gave both those horses pretty decent ratings. So I rate horses on a scale of 0 to 100. 100 is 100% lock. You're going to win the Kentucky Derby this race. Horse. I mean, even if it's Secretariat, I think I would still give Secretariat a 99. Some other dominant horses out there would be in the 90s. American Pharaoh, I'd give like a 91 going into the Derby. I was very confident on it. California Chrome, I gave probably like a 93. So Catholic Boy, I gave like a 73 because I just don't know that much about it. I want to see more about him. Gravitos, I give an 80. I need to see more against, I got his races marked on my calendar coming up once I find out what they are. I will watch them. He's my dark horse, although he's a gray horse. So it's not really a dark horse. Okay, I'm done rambling on that now. But yeah, Gravitos, I give an 80. Going up, I'm going to give Solomini around an 84. He's my third place horse. Or actually, McKinsey and Solomini. I'll put them both together because they race so close. And you might say Instilled Regard. What about him? I haven't watched too much of Instilled Regard to put him up there yet. But yeah, I'll put Solomini up there. I think he's proven that he can stalk very nicely. He's also proven you can avoid getting mixed up in hot paces. Those are the biggest strengths, I think, for this horse. Weaknesses, I don't think he's got the greatest closing speed. He may need to be more of a cruiser instead of a straight punch to the finish line. If he makes his moves a little bit higher around that turn than just the stretch, if he's making it, midway through the final turn, that might be a better spot for him. I mean, then the cash call, he did pretty well closing like that. He can duel, apparently bump when he duels too, but again, I'm going to overlook that. Solomini's up there as my number 3. I've got Bolt Doro actually, and McKinsey as well. I mean, McKinsey ran basically the same time as Solomini. So I'm going to put them together at 3. Bolt Doro, I've got him at an 84. Basically the same exact rating as Solomini. His strengths are he can definitely hang with the pace and his late speed to pass for victory. His weaknesses, I think this horse is very dependent on cruising speed. If he had an outside post, I mean, in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, there wasn't 20 horses in that race. There were, 11 or 12, whatever. He was on the outside. And that screwed him up. What if he gets an 18 post? What if he gets a 15? What if he gets a 20 post? I don't know if this horse can overcome that. I have to see it more. I think he's very dependent on a high cruising speed. I don't know if his speed down the stretch will match some of what the late chargers can do or a great stalker. I think Bolt Doro is a stalker. I don't think he needs the lead. I think he's great just hanging off the lead. He's a big question mark, but he's my number 2 right now, and leaves me to Good Magic as my number 1. Good Magic, he's just got a versatile racing style. He can stalk. He can keep up with incredibly hot paces and still pass. Doesn't get caught up in traffic. Races his race. Until I see a horse knock Good Magic off of, his game, I don't see a horse beating Good Magic at the moment. I would love to see these top 5 horses go, or top 7 technically, because I split McKinsey in there and I put Catholic Boy in there as well. I would love to see them in a race together. It looks very interesting. They're going to be on different coasts, I believe, though. So, good magic, though. I think the stamina in this horse is amazing. I don't think he has elite speed. Like if he went against the legends in horse racing, I don't think he would win. But I think he's got enough speed and tactical speed to not be caught at the moment. He's my number one horse going in. I got him rated at an 86. So yeah, he's not even a 90. So right now the Derby field is pretty open. We're going to learn a lot more about that through the next couple months here as we get through the prep season. The aggregate for combining both of our rankings together, it seems we're split on Bolt Oro and Good Magic for number one. Number three, we're pretty unanimous on Solimini. Number four, we're pretty unanimous on Gravitos. And number five, we've got McKinsey. And he's with his Avery Island in there. Yep, Avery Island. Maybe Catholic Boy. Five's very fuzzy. But our top four seems pretty good. We're both pretty high on Gravitos. Who knows? And then I'm just going to get to the Oaks race, Oaks top five that I got going on right now. I'm going to start out at number five, Separation of Powers. This was the horse that I had mentioned before. Just came up flat in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, 14 Hands Winery, whatever. However, Separation of Powers, I think she's got the fastest time of all right now in the Frizette. And the only thing I'm scared about her is she doesn't have good enough closing speed to ward off the others. Needs a lot of luck, a lot of traffic to get in her way in order to get up there. So the stamina is possibly a deal breaker for me on this one. However, I think she's pretty good. I give her an 83. Next up, I've got Dream Tree as an 86. She's a stalker. I think she's possibly the best stalker of all of them. She picks a target and just stays on the outside hip regardless of the speed. Looked like a possible weakness in the finish of the Desi Arnaz, which is technically not a points race. But that race was pretty hotly contested, and she closed the field. And oh yeah, so sorry about that. I'm looking at my notes in a weird way here. So she killed it in the Starlet right there. That was the big one. She was in the Desi Arnaz. I thought she was going to lose that. I have to rewatch that one because it's not on top of my head because I don't have it on my notes here because it wasn't a points race. But it didn't burn her because she did close very well in the Starlet. So possible weaknesses, that Desi Arnaz, she was close to being caught there at maybe just cruises to the finish line instead of guns it. There's other horses I'm going to mention after this that may possibly catch her. She may not have that fight and will down the stretch to get the victory. So that's why I have to leave Dream Tree at an 86 right now, which is the fourth ranked. The third ranked may be a little bit of a surprise. It's the one I was talking so highly about in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, Caledonia Road. I think this horse is tremendous. I think she's more of a mid-packer, stock mid-pack kind of running style. I gave her an 88. I think she's got great stamina. She's got great tackle speed and great closer. Her weakness is she's dependent on the field. Needs help from the field to put away rivals, which it bit her in the Frizette. And then she went 5 wide in the Breeders. So it's a little scary. I mean, is she going to be able to get her race? Is she too slow to get in position going around the first half of the track? That's the only thing that concerns me. I can't. If there's a question about getting caught and not running your own race, I think Caledonia Road is a horse that can get burned by that. But I think she's possibly the most talented of all of them. That's why I give her an 88, and she's still third in my rankings here. And then the top two, Monomoy Girl, I've got it number 2. And I mean, that Monomoy Girl, crazy fast, and she's relentless about the lead. She's got very high cruising speed, and she has the potential to bury competition. Her weakness is she lost down the stretch after seemingly won a race. She looked like she won and lost to Road to Victory, who's my number one. I give Monomoy Girl an 89. I give Road to Victory a 90. Road to Victory took a race that shouldn't have been hers. Monomoy Girl should have put her away, and she stole victory from her. And her style is great, and she's very fast, and she's not afraid to go out on a limb with a hot pace either. The weakness, and this comes from last year's Oaks, I'm afraid that this horse may possibly get mixed up in too hot of a pace, like what happened to Miss Sky Warrior and Paradise Woods last year. That was in the mud. I have no idea. That horse race was such an anomaly to me. I don't know. But Road to Victory right now, she's looking like a Paradise Woods type of horse. Can possibly do things. I have to watch her going forward. So that's my top 5 there. Just a quick recap. My top 5 for the boys is Good Magic at number 1, Baltoro number 2, Solomini number 3. Then we've got McKinsey, Gravitos, Catholic Boy, Instilled Regard. They're all kind of up there, mushed together to round out the 5. Then female horses, Road to Victory, definitely number 1, Monomoy Girl 2, Caledonia Road 3. Those are ahead. That's the head of the class right there, followed by Dream Tree and Separation of Powers. Some other horses out there you might want to take a look at that were intriguing to me. They might pop up on this board. There's a horse called Sporting Chance out there. This is for the boys. Sporting Chance, Enticed. That's a name you're going to be hearing. Tis Mischief, Awaken, Bal Harbor. Some of these are winning races. I'm just not 100% sure on their speed or their style. Female horses going forward as well that didn't make the top 5, but keep an eye on. Blonde Bomber's definitely up there. Amy's Challenge is a horse. Testing 1-2, Held Accountable, Burning Rose. Those are ones that also pop up on my list a little bit too. Now, before we head out here, just a heads up. These are rankings that are in January right now. It's January 2nd. The Jerome was supposed to be the next race for the boys yesterday. Frenzy Fire is supposed to be in it, but it got canceled. Or is actually, on January 1st, the race got canceled. It's probably going to be postponed for 2 weeks, they say. So there's going to be a few races coming up. At the end of each month, I'm going to be doing a recap kind of like this. And these leaderboards are going to change. I'm going to post them up on the Twitter feed as well. Again, it's at the Sports Tri at Twitter. You can email us too if you want. It's the sportstrifecta@gmail.com. If you've got any suggestions or any input, definitely send them our way too. Great thing too is if you saw some of our posts from last year on Twitter, we do shame bets for the losers. We had people rocking short shorts in public, tape face. We had people watching terrible movies, writing reviews. So if you've got any cool punishment challenges for the losers in our competition, send us an email at sportstrifecta@gmail.com as well. Thanks for listening, and have a great Happy New Year. Take care. Take care. Take care. Take care.